Okay, so again, welcome to the Purpose of this book, David, alcoholic addict, and we are on page 76 in the big book. Bottom paragraph is right where the new content is, but before we get into that, we just want to circle back a little bit into the previous paragraph where step 8 is really introduced. And one of the things I said as we were wrapping up last week is that wanted to show an example of a 8-step harms inventory list that I mentioned. If you were studying with us when we were in the 4-step inventories, we had worksheets for the resentment inventory, the fear inventory, and the sex conduct inventory. So we've got a work sheet for 8 as well. And all of these worksheets are available on purposeofthisbook.com. If you just scroll down to there's only one page in the site, so you can just scroll down and everything's available to download. So where the heck did I put this? Let me grab it. Bear with me, guys. I got to find it again. There it is. Okay. And then let me figure out if I can share. Okay. So, and then you guys disappeared on me. There you are. Okay. So, if we just look back in the previous paragraph, I'll just reread it again quickly and emphasize, the sort of lead in here. So previous paragraph started with, now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. And here's the key kind of sentences. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. So we talked about this last time. How do we already have a list if we're just starting step 8? Well, we made 3 pretty comprehensive lists in our 4-step inventory if we were what? Thorough and honest. Right? We made it when we took inventory, black and white. So as I'm making my summary of harms in the 8th step, I ought not be starting from scratch. And so, inspired a little bit by how Joe and Charlie did theirs and a little bit by the content and, just maybe a little twist of our own, not to be original, just to go and align with our thinking and following the book. The book says, I've got a list. I made it when I took inventory. So what is this summary document for the 8th step? Well, if I've got a list and I made it in inventory, I'm just going to go back and say, well, who was it that I harmed? And really, this probably ought to be updated. It probably shouldn't just say person. It maybe should say sort of person or institution. Write it down if it was on the resentment list, if there was a fear, something from the fear list. Obviously, the sex harms inventory. Everybody in the sex inventory's got to end up here. What was the person or institution in column 1? Which inventory did it come from? How did I harm them? So this is a nice, tidy summary of all the harms that came up in the first 3 inventories. Okay, that should be the jumping off point to get a nice list. But beyond that, there is going to be content. There are going to be harms that are going to go on this list. People, I harmed institutions like, I stole from my high school. I stole from Dominic's supermarket when I worked there. There were organizations that I just harmed that I didn't have any fear, sex conduct, or resentments around. They were just straight up harms. So I don't know what your ratio is going to be, whether it's going to be 50-50 or 80-20 or 20-80, but there's going to be some mix if your experience is like mine, which I expect it will be. We're going to get all the stuff from your resentments, fears, and sex, put it on here, list it out in black and white, and then figure out, probably go back through my life one more time and figure out what's missing from the list.
Yeah, I like the sheet just because it simplifies things for me. Anything that's in black and white helps me through the process. So as David pointed out, it's just a simple 3-column inventory. So I know who the people I've harmed because, well, for me anyways, when I'm sitting with my sponsees or I'm step guiding someone, I'm writing down these names just so I'm keeping them present for me so we can discuss this. Why we're going to discuss this? Well, we're going to discuss this later on in the process when he's going to go to make his 9th, when he's going to go make his approach to the persons or person that he has harmed or the institution he has harmed. Why am I going to do that? Because we don't want to cause any more harms. Maybe it was an old girlfriend that's remarried to someone else, doesn't know anything about the history, her history with me. I don't need to go and cause more harms in that life. But So I'm going to go through, I'm not going to edit my sponsees 8-step list, but I am going to look at it. We are both going to look it over and make sure we're not going to cause any more harms. But the last column, how did they harm them? I really need to know that. But the process is not always that transparent for me. What I believe I harm them, this is bigger and broader than that in most cases. So, and I brought this up last week. I'll bring it up again, and I'll probably bring it up again for the end of the night. So when I go make my amends to someone, I go with how I thought I harmed you. So that I clear up the records, repair the damage from my past. And then when I get done doing that, I ask that individual or that institution, is there any other harms that I caused you that I'm not aware of? And that's where I shut up for 45 minutes and I listen to what they have to say. And I'm not exaggerating when I say 45 minutes, because I have a perception problem. I believe it was just black and white. These are the harms I caused. And when I listen to what they had to say for 45 minutes, then I got to make those wrongs right. Then I asked them, how can I make this right? What do I need to do? How do I amend this? Amends in the big book is written in plural. It's never written in the singular ever. So this is amends. This means that I'm going to practice these principles in all my affairs so I don't continue to do these harms to these people if they allowed me back in their lives, or to other people going forward, because I've had a personality change sufficient enough to recover from this illness. So I don't suffer from it any longer. I'm not causing these harms anymore. The miracles are going to come through here. And the 9th step is going to, as we get to that, we're going to find out what our real purpose is in life. But if I don't have this list and I don't make my approaches and I don't make my appointments and I don't make all my amends, I'm not going to get those 9th step promises. I'm not going to live in the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12. That's just my experience working with others. That's not my personal experience, because my very life as an ex-problem drinker depends upon my constant thought of others, meaning I got to practice these principles. So that's all I got with that. You're muted, David.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Appreciate that. So let's pick up the new content then. Bottom of, I'll just finish reading the paragraph and then we'll roll into the next one. So we've made it. We took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. This is in paragraph 3 on 76. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. You want to double down on that? Go.
Yeah, for sure. Because So I won't go back to the whole paragraph, but it talks about halfway through the paragraph after we talk about repair the damage done in the past. So that's what a 4th step is looking at. Anything I've done in my past. This self-appraisal, drastic self-appraisal I've done. Next sentence, we attempt to sweep away the garbage or which is accumulated. This is my amends. This is what I'm looking at here. Accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show. Remember page 60, running the whole show. Man, anytime I am full of self, anytime that I'm having a problem with a relationship in the bedevilments, having problems with personal relationships, I go back to page 60. I go back there and I read it and see where I'm showing up at. Self-will's running riot and I'm stepping on the toes of my fellows and they retaliate. I'm not living like that today. So then it says, if we haven't the will to do this, what do? We pray. We pray what? We pray that until it comes. So God will give me the power to be able to go out and make these amends. I was not ready for these amends in the first meeting I went to, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous. I thought I was, but I wasn't. What I was ready for in my first meeting was the first step. That's all the ability that I had. As I continue to do this work, God can continue to give me the ability to do the next step. 1 build into 2, 2 into 3 into 4, and so on and so forth. The process is in a specific order for a specific reason, because I don't know how to make amends. I don't even know why I'm making amends, and I'm confused what amends even means early in sobriety. So this is why we study the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, so I can understand why I'm doing this. Last sentence in that paragraph that David read. Remember. Why do they ask us to remember? Because I have a short memory. That's why. And on page 58, and how it works that we read it almost every meeting we go to, they ask us to be willing to go to any lengths. So in italic writing, it says, remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. That is a promise too, because we will have victory over alcohol. The obsession will be removed. I cannot have the allergy. I cannot break out in craving if I don't pick up a drink or a drug. But I don't have the power to remove this obsession in my life, and my life is manageable today. I have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. The book is outlined in a specific order too, so that I can continue to have these promises and have these experiences with the text, which is also another spiritual experience. Every time I read this book, as I will tonight, I will have another spiritual experience. I will go downstairs after this. I'm up in my office. My father-in-law lives with us. My wife will be down there. My daughter's in helping out with my father-in-law. She lives in Colorado. We're in Chicago. And they'll be doing their own thing, but I'll be on fire. I'll be amped up. And I want it to be all about me. And it's like, but the thing, because I'm feeling the presence of God about me. You know, here's the key. Here's the best part about it is, you want to feel like that all the time? Practice steps 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then Mark Houston says, so, and the last thing about that sentence there, be willing to go to any lengths to victory over alcohol. How free do you want to be? That's the question I got to consider. How free do I want to be? Just want some relief? Or do I want to be free of the bondages of self? That's the question. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, David. All right, now we're moving on. Bottom of 76, paragraph 4. Probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we've hurt, we may feel diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not, and probably should not, emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. We might prejudice them. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order. But this is not an end in itself. Holy cow, if you don't have this highlighted or underlined, please highlight, underline, circle, asterisk this next sentence. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we've gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious boors? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message. But our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. He's going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. Go ahead, David.
There's a lot there.
Take a chunk.
Okay, so the Rob put in the definition of definite, like uncertain. So it's we may feel uncertain about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. Here is a very strong warning to what Bill's talking about right now. To some people, we need not be careful here, and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. Bill uses the approach word 29, 39 times. Kind of lost the track of how many times it is, but Bill uses the word approach. Approach means, just like the newcomer at a meeting, I approach them. I don't wait for them to approach me. Same as with my amends. I make my approach. I set my appointment. Because in the next paragraph on the top of page 77, we might prejudice them. So preconceived thought or an opinion is a prejudice. They've already got a preconceived thought about religion, possibly. They may have a preconceived thought about me because I'm a thief. Every time they were around me, I stole something from them. Sometimes it was just their happiness. And at the moment, we were trying to put our lives in order. So that is the process of working the steps, because 4, 5, 6, and 7 were focused on myself with the help of a sponsor and the relationship now with God. And 8 and 9 is going to be with you. 8 and 9 are with you. You know, I've been doing things hand in hand with my sponsor, 1 through 7, right? Hand in hand. Now I'm out on my own. That's to say my sponsor won't go with me on some calls, but probably not. Like, I'm going to really need this power in my life to go make my approaches and sit down and make these amends. Are they going to be easy? No, but we start with the best one, the easiest ones first. And when we get to that, we're going to get to that in this paragraph, next paragraph. We're going to talk about the person that we hated or resented. Those are maybe the hardest amends to make. But as David pointed out in the next sentence there, but that is not the end in itself. Here it is. This is a real paradox of what amends is. A real purpose to fit ourselves. What is fitting ourselves? That is a metaphor for action. That is about action. To be of maximum service to God and the people about us. So all God to God and all his kids. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. All about us. See, I thought amends was so I felt better about myself. I did. That's what I originally thought. That's why we pray before we go make our amends, because I don't want to disrupt or I don't know where they're at in their lives. I gotta pray. I gotta consult with other people to find out if this is the proper way to go make my amends. I got to take God with me through this whole process here. This in 6, the dramatic writing change took place about power flowing in. I should start feeling power. You know, the blame game is over in 7. The list is here in 8. 9, I'm going to go out there and make my amends. But the purpose of that is not so I feel better about myself. And making my amends to others here, I'm not others. This is not about, I'm not supposed to be harming other people. I may get harmed. I may have to get locked up. I may have to carry this message behind the walls if I've committed a crime. And I committed some crimes out there that I've had to make amends for, financial amends over my few 24 hours I've been here. That's what I did. But if they wanted to prosecute me, I might have had to carry this message inside the walls. I don't know. But I'm just saying that. And then it says in the next paragraph, maximum service to God and people about us. It's seldom wise to approach an individual. Again, the approach word Bill's using here, who still smarts from our injustice to them. So these are guiding principles. What should I do here? I should be praying this whole entire time. I have really harmed some people. I have minimized some of that stuff, and it's just not the truth. And then it says, next part of the sentences, and just him announce that we have gone religious. So I haven't had that experience, but a lot of times early in Alcoholics Anonymous, because of before the steps were written, before this book was written, they went with them with the Oxford Christian Evangelical way. It was a Christian-based program, and that's the way they went out and make their amends. Bob did it on his 3rd day of convalescence. So again, it says, and then the next part of the paragraph, it says, in the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. So yeah, if I'm in a prize ring and I got my chin out there, I'm going to get hit. I'm going to get one right on the jaw, and I'm going to go down. So that's not what we're trying to do here. We lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores. I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to make myself as a better person than I am. I'm doing this because I don't want to drink or drug anymore, and I want to be of maximum service to God and all the people about me. That is an experience that I don't know what that means yet. That sentence, that our real purpose, that is such an important sentence. Might be one of the most important sentences, because I had no purpose prior to Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous. But now I know what my real purpose is. It's to be fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. That doesn't even include it doesn't just segment it into a small little tunnel of just alcoholics and addicts. It's all people I come in contact with today. My grandchildren, my strangers in the store, open up the door, let people into traffic, you know, a nice hello in the morning, a smile on my face. There's so many ways. This is about a personality change sufficient enough to recover. It's like being in church all day long. I'm grateful to be a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Why wouldn't I act like it? Why wouldn't I be like this all the time? I can't even help myself. I feel the Spirit of God. And the key to that thing for me is, and I'll be quiet after this one, I'll let David go, of course, but the key about that is, how much time in the morning am I spending with God? Because whatever amount of time I spend with God in the morning, that's what I'm taking into my day. If I'm running through my 37 and 11-step prayers, and I ain't paying attention to what they're saying or my meditation books, and I can't recall what they say, that happens a lot. Don't get me wrong. But if I slow the pace, if I meditate for a minute, and then I meditate the next month or the next week for 2 minutes, and then 3 minutes, then 5 minutes. I mean, I know of people, I don't know them personally, the speakers that I love, Joe Hawks and Mark Houston, 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the evening. Can I find 45 minutes in the morning? You betcha I could. Could I find 45 minutes in the evening? You betcha I could. I could turn off that Netflix show. I don't need to watch that. It's waiting for me at another time, at another station. So,
yeah, I mean, David knocked this paragraph out of the park. as expected. I'll just underscore a few things here. I think it's really reasonable what Bill has written here about, you know, we just got out of 5. We blistered through 6 and 7. We're immediately on to 8. So I've got my list of harms. I'm shoring it up. But the way the content is presented here, which is a little unusual compared to some of the other steps, is he really has us thinking about both steps at once. And I think it's good really just to be thinking about 8 first, like making sure I got that list and also making sure that I'm really willing. But then I got to get busy in 9. And what I'm starting to say is I think it's reasonable what he wrote here is that as I'm looking over the list of harms, that I'm nervous, that I'm concerned, that I'm fearful about going out and making these amends. I think it is a very human response to this activity when I'm doing it for the first time. With some reps, it's easier to do now. Like what I find that I'm into those amends almost instantaneously when I've done something wrong that I need to make right. Because that's being in the 10th step, right? Making those amends promptly when I screw up, not if. But I think being new or working these steps the first time, it's a very human response to be nervous about this. But here's the deal: I can recognize that fear, and I can still push through. I've got to do this stuff not just to build character, not just to push through, bust through the wall and become a new person, right? What I've got to do is I've got to get into this exercise, into this behavior, into this action because of what we highlighted on the top of 77. I've got to do this because this activity of making amends where I've done harm is the beginning of my new life as an agent of God, where I'm fitting myself to be of maximum service to God and everybody about me. Like David said, yes, certainly people in recovery, other, alcoholics and addicts or whatever your fellowship is, however you qualify it. Yes, we got to help people in our fellowships, but I have to be of maximum service to all other 8 billion people on this planet. I don't get to pick and choose where I want to be of service, right? It's really not up to me. It's up to God. And I've got to be open to God through my 10th and 11th step work, like David talked about. If I go into my day with God in 11 and I end my day with God in 11 and I stay close to God all day long in 10, spot checking, I'm going to get a lot of direction. Should be a lot of clear direction unless I screw it up. And then, David talked about this too. And just to double down a little bit on this is this whole, we're not doing like Ebby or like Bill experienced from Ebby, where Ebby showed up and he had the clear eyes and Bill's like, what's up? And Ebby's like, well, I've got religion. Like, that's probably the worst thing that I could do with just about anyone. They don't want to hear about me and how I've turned over some new leaf. It's the latest thing that I'm into, because they've heard me do. Here's what I'm really good at: talking. I'm a great talker, right? Talk. And I've always been like that. And a lot of people were quite bored with all the nonsense that came out of my mouth. So they don't want to hear a bunch of garbage. What they want is a real demonstration that I'm making this thing right and that I'm behaving differently. If I say, I'm into religion, or I'm an AA guy or CA guy, it's like, I don't know, I'm positioning myself. Maybe I'm trying to pedestal myself. I'm trying to backdoor them into feeling a certain way, maybe giving me forgiveness, edging towards that where they don't want to forgive me, which they don't have to do, by the way. This is not about courting forgiveness at all. If they say, hey, man, it's cool, I forgive you, that's icing on the cake. This is not the errand I am on. Right? I don't get absolution just because I desire it from somebody else, not from a religious leader, nothing. Right? This is about me going out there and saying, I screwed up and I want to make it right. And I am wide open and I'm sitting myself down, like David said, 45 minutes could be 45 hours, depending on the person, to hear all the other ways in which I've harmed them. I got to be open to that. And then I got to figure out what they think about how I should make that right. Yeah, demonstration. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to double down on that. Okay. David, anything else on that, or you want to keep rolling?
Yeah, let me just do one more thing. I just want to connect some dots. So in the
Please.
bottom of that paragraph on page 77 here, where it says, we may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message. So hang on to that thought for a second, and then I'm going to finish the paragraph. But our man is sure to be impressed with his sincere desire to set right the wrong. That's the point of doing a 9th step. and he is going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discovery. So I could be spiritual or full of religion, but my definition is demonstration, the action or process of showing the existence or truth of something by giving proof or evidence. So this is an internal illness with an internal solution, and I either got it or I don't have it. The person will either see it or they won't see it because I either changed or I have not. So back to the paragraph that I read. So this is my motive in that paragraph. But our man is sure to be impressed with the sincere desire to set right the wrong. And he's going to be, sentence before that. We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message. What is that message possibly to be? Let's bounce forward in the book. David and I typically don't do this, but I'm going to do it today. In the family afterward on page 124, second paragraph. 2/3 of the way down in the paragraph, and I'll wait for you to catch up there. And it starts out with the word cling. We had that word earlier in the sixth step on page 76. Sorry, turn my phone off. 76 or 124. So cling to the thought in God's hands. The dark past is the greatest possession you have. The key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death or misery for them. This is our real purpose they talked about. To be a real purpose and to fit ourselves in maximum service to God and people about us. What if one of my men's, and this is not my experience, I've heard it from another speaker, and I'm not stealing their story and making it mine. It's not what I'm doing. I'm just explaining the story that I heard. This guy drove by a house for a year. He was a truck driver that he needed to make amends at. Drove by it every single day. Could not get the courage to stop by and make his amends. A year into the process, he finally stops. He rings the doorbell. He makes his approach. He didn't make an appointment. That's okay. Rings the doorbell. They weren't real happy to see him, but he immediately got to business and talked about what amends that he needed, what harms that he had caused. The guy said, "Would you come in? My son is gravely ill with heroin addiction, and I don't know what to do. Could you possibly help them?" This is what we're talking about here on page 24. We can avert death and misery for them. We don't know what that amends looks like. We think it's about us. It's not. It's about me clearing up the wreckage of my past and being able to have relationship with other human beings, being a maximum service to God and all his kids. I don't know who that other person is. And if they have a loved one that I could be of service to, how do I know? The picture is always bigger than I think it is because God has one thing that I can't describe to you. It's called being infinite. And infinite means no beginning and no end. That's the only way I can give the definition to describe it. I can't explain it. I just know there's no beginning and no end. That's where I start and stop at. I have a beginning and an end. Mine started on April 12th, 1961. There's a dash on my tombstone someday. And I will tell you, I don't know the end date yet. I don't plan on going quickly, but there will be an end date. God does not have an end date. I will. The dash, by the way, in between my start date and my end date is where I live. Where do I live? Right here, right now. That's what I have right here, right now. That's all I got.
All right, continuing on. Middle of 77. We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. It may be he has done us more harm than we have done him, and though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. So I think it's important, as I try to do from time to time here, make sure we're clear on the context, right? So Bill starts in this paragraph by saying, we don't use this as an excuse for shying away. What he's talking about is the suggestion that, that we don't lead with our chin, that we don't come over top, leading with spirituality or religion. right? So just because it's not appropriate for me to begin or to handle the amend in that way doesn't mean I don't still aggressively pursue the amend. That's his point there. And he goes on to further qualify this. If there's going to be a point to it, then yeah, I can talk about my spiritual convictions. How? With tact and common sense. Okay, so first time making amends, how many of us had a great command of tact and common sense? I'm going to say I was in short supply of both of those things. However, I would also like to imagine that it's probably better at this point, having gotten through the first 8 steps, than I would have been, minus 8 steps earlier. So hopefully I've started to develop some tact and common sense. I may not even know what those words mean in real life, in real practice. What a wonderful opportunity to sit down with my sponsor and say, I'm about to go make this amend, as we talked about. Book says I'm supposed to do that with tact and common sense. What does that really mean? All right. So then we get into the question, and David, maybe when you share, you can give everybody those, 6 different amends and the pages they're on, since we're jumping right into this first one, right? So this first amendment that's being talked about is the person that we hate, right? I think it's a great one. It's like, let's lead with this really tough kind of amend. We got that list, and we look at that list and we're like, oh, my mom's on there. My mom always loved me, even though, I screwed up so many times. I want to go make those amends to mom, right? Or, oh, my best friend, they were always there, held my hair back when I had hair, when I puked, that type of thing. I want to go make it right with them. But those people that we never liked, right? Got to get that out. Get out in front of those things. So the book is addressing it straight on, right? It's saying, maybe this person that we hate, and the reason why we're still feeling the hate is because potentially, sort of on paper, right, looks like maybe he has done more harm than we've done to him, right? Through our spiritual growth, through our spiritual awakenings at this point, we're going to have ideally a little bit better of an attitude, but I'm not in love with going to him and saying, here's how I screwed up. Right? This is a whole lot of eating giant piece of humble pie in these situations. But what am I supposed to do? What's the direction? Take the bit in my teeth, right? Just like a horsey does, and get into action. Go. This is not about finding excuses why I can't do this difficult thing. And it says, yeah, it's harder to go to an enemy than a friend, of course, right? Because I've got the love for the friend. I'm interested in patching things up and making it more right. But the reality is, I'm going to get more freedom out of sorting this thing out with the person that I have the greater resentment or hate for. Right? And David already brought this up. How free do I want to be? Do I want to be a little free? Do I want to be somewhat free? I'll get some of that from making those amends to my friends and to my family. But I do all my amends, I can be completely free. And come up with your favorite analogy or metaphor, what it means to be free. How free do I want to be? If I'm completely free, I can run wild and I can go anywhere, anytime, because I'm safe and protected in my relationship with God. What does it mean to be partially free? Am I still willing to have a shackle on my ankle and a 20-foot chain? I don't think so. I want to be completely free, right? There's a spectrum to freedom. I want it all. So I got to do this tough stuff.
Yeah, so again, I'm a demonstration going into an approach with a person I either hated, as David pointed out, or I resented. Either way, that's what this part of the book is about. This is the first amends process or protocol that Bill's talking about here. So how do I go about doing that with someone like that? So I could go to them and say, hey, I'm in this 12-step program, and part of the process here is that I clean up the wreckage from my past. And you are part of the wreckage of my past. I know I've harmed you gravely in such a manner, but this is a life or death errand that I am on. Because if I just went to them and said, "Oh, I'm sorry," they're like, "I know you're sorry. You've always been sorry." That doesn't work. This is way different. If I go to them and just tell them I'm in a 12-step program, and I'm on a life and death errand, that means I'm going to die. And the good opportunity here is, I would imagine, is they know someone who's died from either alcohol or drug abuse. I almost positive someone does. Almost everybody has. So I'm not going to stay sober if I don't make this amends, and they don't have to give me the time of day. I'm just going through the process to let them know that I need to talk to them. So it talks about in the middle of that paragraph that maybe he has done us more harm than we have done him. Though he may have acquired a better attitude toward the him, he was still not too keen about admitting our faults. This is only about my faults. If he harmed me, it has nothing to do with it. I'm clean because haven't I always, and this really goes more for the people who I owe financial amends to. But if I want to get free of my amends, I got to stop looking over my shoulder. I got to make my amends. If I want to get free of them, I got to make my amends, all my amends. Then in the paragraph there, it says, we've acquired a better attitude toward him. Where do we get that from? That was a process of counseling with other people and understanding why I'm making this amends. And we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. I pray about that. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. Suck it up, Buttercup. That's what that means. Suck it up. Go do the freaking amends. It's not an option. I got to go make it. That's why I think Bill leads with maybe the toughest one of all. I mean, domestic troubles are at the end of all these amends processes. That's a tough one too, but that's the one we're really aware of. So it's harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. Then it says we go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit. That is my behavior, and that is also an approach reference. We go to him. That's an approach reference in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill, not his, and feeling and expressing our regret. I don't talk about what they did. I only talk about if he wants to talk about that's great. I just gladly nod. That's it. And this is not an option. I have to do this. You know, have tos and musts are in the big book. If I'm ever going to get free of the bondage of self, this is a must that I do this. And I know I said this is kind of seems like a solitary step because my sponsor's not going to be there holding my hand at this moment, or I can't take the whole fellowship on Saturday morning of my live meeting, all 60 people get in a big bus and will knock on the door. I can't necessarily do that. But I have a relationship with God now. And I can bring that in. And that's something that I got to start practicing, inviting God in, not just in my morning, but throughout my day. And that's what the process of emotional sobriety looks like in 10. But the 11th step is about a constant contact with God. Constant contact. And even though we're always sitting in 9, guess what? We should have started 10 already. As soon as I make my first approach, start 10. I just wanted to give a spoiler alert. That's how we do this. That's all I got there.
Right. Oh, and Rob did us a solid here. Dave, I don't know if you saw that in the chat, but he put those I think I said 6 to 8 kinds of amends. I don't know if you usually cover that a little bit, or should we just let that stand and keep rolling?
Oh, that's brilliant. I can't do better than Rob ever.
Okay. So everybody note that in the chat. It's a great little list there. Find those spots, highlight, underline those 8 different amends and how to do them through pages 77 and 83.
That's brilliant.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Let's pick up bottom of 77. Direction. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply, we tell them that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a second. There are only a few times that there are things in the book that I don't agree with. And this is actually one of them. And this is just my opinion. I'm only giving it because some of what David and I do here is give a little opinion based on our experience about the contents of the book. I'm not certain that I need to try to convince someone to let them hear my amend because I may not get over drinking if I don't get to straighten out my past with them. Someone I'm approaching may not, I was going to swear, may not care at all. I may have harmed them. They may not care if I drink myself to death. So I'm not entirely certain that it's a compelling reason to say that, right? And David talked about some of these speakers we love, and there was 2 different competing speakers that I love and worship, and one of them said to say that, and one of them said, don't ever say that. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And I know the book. I'm pretty fundamental about the book. It says this is what I'm supposed to do. But I think my recommendation is to consider that approach the same way that Bill up at the top of the page says, maybe talk about your spiritual angle and maybe don't do that based on the audience. And so I think a good idea is to take that same sort of discernment about this particular tactic.
Yeah, I agree with David there, just because I think it takes it off the pressure off of me and puts it on them.
Yeah.
It's like now they have to accept, like, because it says simply tell them we will never get over drinking. Okay, go die, bro. I mean,
Right.
I've
What do I
heard
care?
really, right? I don't care. Go die. I mean, you stole we lost our business because you slept with my wife. You pissed on my floor. You know all those things. Yeah, but here's what the one part of that paragraph sentence here: until we've done our utmost to straighten out the past. That's the thing I got to do. Straighten out my past. I don't know that I get to take that and put that on him necessarily. I've used that. Don't get me wrong, because simply I didn't know different. I read this book until I studied it. Just our opinions. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
To our experience.
We try not to give too many opinions, but every once in a while it's impossible. Right? Okay. So let me just restate this again, because this is really important. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply tell them that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so. Never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. I'm going to let David lead us here, but I just want to point out one thing before I do. The previous paragraph talked about taking some tact and common sense into our amends. Now it's saying, hey, also, I got to be calm, frank, and open. This is a tall order for me. Early in recovery, hell, it can still be a tall order for me today. Tactful, sensical, frank, open, and calm. Whew. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, okay, so bottom of 77 second paragraph. After our opinions, we're there to sweep up our side of the street. That's why we're there. That's why I'm here. Realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so. Okay, makes sense to me so far. Here's the strong part of the statement. Never trying to tell him what he should do. So they say in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, there are no musts or have tos or had tos or directions necessarily. These are suggestions. Well, these are pretty flat out directions to me. This is how my instructions of what my behavior should look like. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner, and here's what I got to pray for. My manner needs to be calm, frank, and open. So again, this is about praying and bringing power into my life so I can be calm, so I can be frank and open. And then when that happens, I get the promise. You will be gratified with the result. That's a promise.
Yeah, so a couple of things here. This is pretty clear direction, and I love when Bill's nice in black and white. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Again, this errand is not about getting into a back and forth. It is about me, first of all, making an appointment when it's convenient for this person to see me. That's number one. And I need to explain what I'm attempting to do, right? Like I would like to share with you the ways in which I'm aware that I've harmed you. And, you know, presumably they're willing to hear all that. And then David talked about, then I open the floor to them. Would you like to tell me any other ways in which I've harmed you? And then the next question is, how can I make that right? Right. So there's a bit of a mechanical approach here, and the miracle always comes out of the mechanics when I do them enough. But I don't get to, I only get to listen when I ask for the feedback. I don't get to debate or argue it. Absolutely not. Right. And I'm there to take care of what I can take care of. And part of that, again, is not about seeking forgiveness. I ought not ask for that, or absolution, or credit for how I'm growing. None of that, right? His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. And guys, this is consistent. If you go back to 67, when we're in the fourth column of the fourth step, right? This is where this concept of I don't know where this language came up in meetings about having a part in harms or
Hmm.
resentments, right? I urge you to purge that, because
Hmm.
here's what we're told in the 4-step, second full paragraph on 67, referring to our list again. So we're looking at the first 3 columns we've written in our resentment inventory. We're looking at it again. Putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done. How does somebody have a part in it if I'm putting out of my mind the wrong that they have done? They cannot have a part. I'm putting it out of my mind, right? We resolutely look for our own mistakes. My mistakes do not include anybody else's part. This is about me. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self seeking, and frightened? Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried. What does Yoda say about trying? So I'm just going to say we disregarded the other person involved entirely. If I disregard the other person involved entirely, how do they have a part? They don't. Where was I to blame? The inventory was mine, not the other man's. How many times does Bill have to tell us here? We're not considering the other person's part or what they did. This is exclusively about me. And we're getting echoes of that here again because it's been introduced to us in 4. So now we're getting it here in 9. Same stuff, right? His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. And yeah, Bill knows how to appeal to us. He's saying, hey, man, you're going to be.
David froze. I have no idea where he's going with that. All right, back to the text, guys. So I got to get back to the page. I was making some notes while we are here. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, paragraph 78, page 78, first paragraph. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own fault. So feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter. However, sometimes someone does throw us out of the office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam. Are you back,
Can you
David?
hear me now, by the way?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So I read the paragraph.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead and
got it.
finish what you're saying.
I don't even remember. It's all right. Train of thought lost. 50 minutes
You're
on
on
my
a roll,
backup
bro.
internet.
It was good.
Pretty good.
No, it was good, bro.
Yeah, it's all right.
All right.
Next time. Go ahead,
All right.
man.
No, I'm okay. So nine cases out of 10. So that looks like a stat to me. The unexpected happens. So that's out of someone's experience. I mean, that's also my experience. 9 out of 10. Sometimes the man we're calling upon, it's his own fault. I don't recall one person who did that with me, so I'm the 1 out of 10. I don't remember anyone really harming me necessarily. And the ones that did, I wasn't looking at their wrong in that whole thing. Again, I'm not going to use that bad word. It starts with a P. Their part, like David pointed out. There's no part. Pies have parts. Pizzas have parts. Cars have parts. Toys have parts. Hair. Okay. Sometimes the man we're calling upon admits his own faults. So feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. So that's a time reference. That's an experience also. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. So if I go with the instructions that was given me in the prior paragraph, if our manner is calm, frank, and open, we would be gratified with the results. This paragraph is just backing that up for me. That's all it's saying here. This is their experience. This is also my experience. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. If I come to them with an internal change in me, my insides start to match my outsides. I don't know if you're a month sober, if you're 6 months sober, or a year, whatever the approach is, and I'm not using any of that as an excuse. Make your amends quickly, make your amends accordingly, not to harm anyone else, but make your amends. So occasionally they will offer assistance. So they will offer up what they can do to help me maybe get back on my feet, or maybe they can help and maybe repair the damage in our relationship. What can I do to make our relationship better? And it should not matter. That's the key. That's the key here. What they do is not what matters. However, this is the other side of the coin. There's always another side. If someone does throw us out of his office, We made our demonstration. We reformed our action. We came with a demonstration, another action. We done our part. That's the only time they were going to use part today. It's water under the dam. It is. It's just water under the dam. I did my part. That's the proper way of using part, I think.
My part, which is the whole part. So
The
yeah,
whole
so
part,
nine,
right.
so 9 cases out of 10, they probably didn't have real statistics on this. I think that's kind of an expression we say, 90% of the time, which means overwhelmingly in their experience and overwhelmingly in my experience, this was a pretty positive event. You know, I went to people, I fessed up, I said, you know, my bad, and I want to make this right. And you know, Summer had asked in the chat a little earlier, do we have we gotten a lot of feedback when making amends that people say just keep doing what you're doing, and I got a lot of that. People were happy for me. You know, even some people that I don't know how many people I went to that I hated, but I went to some people that I never got along that well with, you know, and they were pretty supportive as well. And so sometimes, yeah, the man we're calling upon is going to admit their own faults, and all this history, which is often so much foolishness, just kind of goes away, and it's beautiful. And I love this promise. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. If I'm going about my 9-step amends, following direction, being thorough, being honest, being calm, frank, and open, using tact and common sense, I would say it's almost a guarantee that we're going to make satisfactory progress. And what is satisfactory progress? It doesn't mean, again, the other person is going to absolve me or forgive me or decide they want to be best friends again. That's not the errand. The satisfactory progress is that I go to sweep up my side of the street and to do it the right way, right? And it's between me and God, and some accountability to my sponsor on the progress I'm actually making. Sometimes we get the great feedback, right? Where they praise what we've done. They offer assistance. Maybe we used to do business and that's sour. Maybe we'll do business again, or we'll hang out and spend friendly time again. Don't know. But it doesn't matter if they throw us out. Today, they may not hear the amend. Tomorrow, they may not either. We don't know what next month or next year will bring.
Mm-hmm.
One of my sponsees had his terrible relationship with his ex-girlfriend, treated her terribly, owed her a bunch of money. I said, man, get busy, work out a payment plan with her and pay her that money. And he asked if he could do amends. She said, no, pay me the money you owe me and maybe. Paid her all the money. Said, can we hear the amends? She said, no, by the way, you owe me more money. And he recognized that he did. Now he's on a second level of payment to her. And he said, after I'm done paying her, can I ask again? I said, yeah. And I said, if she says no again, then you got to wait a year and then ask her again. Do not turn this into stalking. She will hear it when she's ready, or maybe she won't, you know. But it's about the following through on the directions to produce the spiritual result. And again, I can't evoke a spiritual event between me and another human. If the other person's unwilling, they're unwilling. I can only tidy up my side of the street, right? And if I'm doing it right, I'm going to make that satisfactory progress. Excuse me. All right, time check. Okay, we got one more in us, at least to get started, David.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Here's an understatement.
Mm-hmm.
Most alcoholics owe money. What a shocking declaration. Most alcoholics owe money. We do not dodge our creditors. Telling them what we are trying to do, we make no bones about our drinking. They usually know it anyway, whether we think so or not. Nor are we afraid of disclosing our alcoholism on the theory it may cause financial harm. Approached in this way, the most ruthless creditor will sometimes surprise us. Arranging the best deal we can, we let these people know we are sorry. Our drinking has made us slow to pay. We must lose our fear of creditors no matter how far we have to go. We're liable to drink if we are afraid to face them. Man, I'll tell you, I don't think there's any one of the amends that people want to shoot the angles or be in the gray or try to rewrite or rethink more than the financial amends. I've heard every reason under the sun. This concept here of arranging the best deal we can, this is the terms that I could ask someone to agree to for me to repay the entire amount. This is not me trying to convince them to let me repay them 20 cents on the dollar. that money that I took, that I stole, that I never gave, whatever it is, it's not my money. And if the other person decides they don't want it back, guess who does not get to keep it? Me. I need to go to God and my sponsor and say, okay, so this person, I owed this person $100 and they died and they have no next to kin. I've tried to legged out every possible way to figure out who to give this money to. That $100 is not mine, guys. I do not get to keep that thing, right? The best deal I can is about over the period of time that I'm going to give it back, right? And it makes no difference too. Like, well, I had a sponsee say to this too. I said, "How are we doing on those financial amends?" I did the list, and I said, "Let's get those going again." Right? They were having some problems with work, and the sponsee said, "Well, do I have to pay back the medical debt? Like hospital debts here in the United States can get very expensive." And I said, "Well, do you owe the money?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, why are you drawing a distinction between different kinds of debts?" I'm like, "Well, my kid just turned 16 and they need a car." I'm like, "All right, so we're going to spend somebody else's money because you feel obligated to get your kid a car. What are you going to do about these financial amends? Are you going to celebrate getting your kid a car with a drink?" Because that's always my fear, right? We must stop treating these money ideas, or it's like, I got to have the new pair of Air Jordan shoes, or I got to have the new fancy shirt, or whatever these luxury items I'm going to spend money on. Other people's money I'm spending on myself. What is the price of my soul? Go ahead, David.
I'll do briefly, and then maybe we'll
Yeah, we'll
just
circle back
revisit it
on it.
next month.
Yeah.
So I've given a lot of people power in the past, always looking over my shoulder, hoping not to run into them because I owe them money, right? This is about me getting my power back. But I love what David's point is here, arranging the best deal we can to let these people know we are sorry. I owe you $1,000. You know what I want to do? I want to be able to take $20 a week out of my paycheck, save up the $1,000, and then walk in your office and slap it on your desk. Go, here's $1,000 I owe. That's not what we're. That's not what that says. It's really black and white what it means. Arranging the best deal we can. What is the best deal that we can? I owe you $1,000. How can I pay that back to you? Well, what can you afford to give me? Well, I can give you $20 a week. Then I give them $20 a week. That's what I do. And then, like as we said, we'll revisit this. We must lose fear of our creditors and of our past. I put that in my book too. And how far we have to go before we're liable to drink, we're afraid to face them. That is a very strong warning. So I'll end it there because we're at the top of the hour.
All right. Thanks, David.
Thank you.